And when you get a state that is governed by so much, by one party, you're going to have disagreements on how to get there. But you know, as Thomas Jefferson said, that difference in opinion does not necessarily constitute a difference in principle. We can have differences of opinion. I have a lot of respect, you know, for Scott. I think we share the same principles in the talks that we've had. We have different ideas on how to get there, but there's, you know, I believe in Ronald Reagan's Big Tent. There's room for a lot of ideas, a lot of points of view, as long as we share those principles that are so vital to the Republican Party.
Thank you. Well, you know, that's a difficult question for me because I was not elected when many of these laws, like the closed primary, were initiated here in the state. I don't like the closed primary. I'll tell you that part right out. We should be a party that includes everybody in the state and the principles that we believe in, and not cut out people's opportunity to vote. For example, when Mitt Romney had his primary here in the state, we were at the high school. There were a lot of people, there were thousands of people there, but many more thousands were included because they were independent voters or whatever. Everybody should have the right to exercise their freedom to vote for their candidate. And by exclusion, that is not the Republican way. We're here to build bridges and to let everybody come forward and speak their mind. And any law, whether it's the state Republican Party that excludes other people from having the right to exercise their vote, I don't believe it. It's not correct. It's not the way that we should be as a party. Now, the Republican Party is a private organization. They can make their own bylaws. But once you're elected, you've got to go by the Constitution of the federal government and the state and do what you can do under the rule of law. We are a nation ruled by law. And that's the way we should be, because that's how the peace and order continues on in the future.
Go ahead.
Just a couple of thoughts. If the federal government has the trump card on every law, why does the state government exist in the first place? It was the state governments that created the federal government. If we yield to the federal government just because they say that law is law, there's no reason to have a government in Boise. Let's just have it in Washington, D.C., and we'll bow to a king. Second, the purpose for a primary is for the party to select its candidates in the general election. It should remain closed. Should it remain a public practice? Perhaps not. Maybe it should be moved to private venues. Maybe that would be a better solution than to open it up to having people of different philosophies establish weaker candidates who will bend and permit more oppression in the lives of Idahoans.
Scott, I think I need to ask a follow-up question there. You talk about asserting more state sovereignty. What should the state do when it has challenged a federal law and the court of last resort has determined that that law is both constitutional and the federal government has the right to pass it? Should the state, what is the remedy for the state at that point?
That's a good question from an attorney. What happens when the court declares a law constitutional? Well, first of all, nowhere in the Constitution does it say that the court has that authority. It's implied that all three branches of the government have that authority. But you know what the court of last resort really is? The people. It's not the Supreme Court. That was a power taken by Marbury versus Madison, and if you read the Marbury versus Madison notes, you'll find that Justice John Marshall decided that the court had the responsibility to determine what was more constitutional between two conflicting laws. not to declare any specific law constitutional or not. And so what do states do? They can't, obviously, repeal the law because they're a state. They can have their delegation go and work on that, and that would be a good move. We can have our national delegation work on repealing the law that we don't like. But here at home, within our own borders, we are sovereign. We have the power as a state to say, no, we are not going to comply with that law, even if the Supreme Court says it's constitutional. We can say, as a people, we disagree and hold to it.
The Idaho Republican platform includes a plank seeking the repeal of the 17th Amendment, which is the direct election of senators as opposed to their appointment by state legislatures. Can we get just a very brief statement as to whether or not you are in favor of the repeal of the 17th Amendment to the Constitution?
I am in favor of repealing the 17th Amendment and the 16th Amendment.
I'm not in favor of the repeal. I think that our voters need the opportunity to go to the polls and select that senator and not leave it up to the legislature.
17th Amendment was passed by the people and ratified by the states because there was so much corruption going on in the selection of our U.S. senators when you only have a small body like the legislature, and the people felt like it should be the people. It's a government of the people, and that the people ought to make that decision as far as who should represent them in the U.S. Senate. Regardless, that is what is in the Constitution, and I support the 17th Amendment.
Like Brent Hill, I also support the 17th Amendment because we have that right. Nobody has taken it away. If you change the Constitution, what other part of the Constitution do they want to take away because it doesn't fit their particular political view? We have that right. You can go out and vote for the person you want to represent you in the Senate. And it should remain that way, and we stand by our Constitution. This is the way it's been proven successful. It may not be your personal philosophy, but it's the law of the land, and I support the United States Constitution. And I'm sorry that anybody else doesn't support the United States Constitution. We talk about it, that it's been inspired, and I believe it has been, and it should remain intact and not changed for any reason except for the people as a whole, which includes everybody in the nation.
Sure. Scott, go ahead and take 30 seconds or so.
Okay, I need to be clear. I agree with Brent on this. I agree with Doug Yancey on this. I support the Constitution as it's written. However, the 17th Amendment took away state representation in Congress. The fact that there's a Senate elected by people makes them an extended arm of the House. And so, you know, if you want to talk about a hybrid solution where the people are still electing senators, but that they are answerable to the state, maybe we could talk about that. But I definitely think that something needs to change about that. And states need to be represented once again as it was intended by the founders.
No rebuttal.
No rebuttal. I will open up the questioning to the floor. If there's any questions that anybody here has that they would like to make, go ahead and raise your hand and walk up here, and I'll hand you the mic, and you can ask a question. I think we can do this without getting too much feedback. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, and I guess this could go to both Brent Hill and Doug Yancey. I don't know about Dell, but The Idaho Freedom Foundation has scored both of you very negatively. And I would like to know how you explain that. Because the Idaho Freedom Foundation keys in on individual liberties and freedom based on constitutional principles.
Let's go ahead and just give that to Representative Hansky and Senator Hill.
You know, the Freedom Foundation, that's a wonderful name. But after being in the House and seeing how they want to curtail your personal freedoms, taking away the vote to vote for your U.S. Senator, they have the closed primary, so only they can have a stronger voice in the Republican process in the state of Idaho. I don't feel that these things are correct. And I cannot support them. And quite frankly, if I don't support them, they won't give me their endorsement. I would rather have, which is not important to me, because I believe in representation for the people of Madison County, and as a whole, they do not support the Freedom Foundation's principles of closed government, where only they have a say in how things are going to be passed.
The so-called Freedom Foundation is run by a man by the name of Wayne Hoffman. I consider Wayne a friend of mine, but I don't like the way he does things. And they try to intimidate people. They try to use this rating system and so forth to get their way. And there is a handful of legislators in both the House and the Senate that always have their computer on to that page whenever there's a vote coming up, so they know how they're supposed to vote on each issue. I don't think you want to send people over there who are going to vote according to how somebody else tells them to vote. We need to study the issues ourselves. We need to look at them. We need to analyze them. We need to do what's best for our constituents, not what's best for Wayne Hoffman. They come up with their own scoring. They do things like, you get points if you vote against an appropriation bill. Doesn't matter which appropriation bill, just vote against one and you get points. No credit for all the work that went on behind the scenes by the leadership and by the budget team and so forth in trying to keep the budgets as low as possible and still get the services provided. They come up with their own system. They come up with their own way to intimidate people. I'm not going to vote the way the Freedom Foundation says. I'm going to vote the way my constituents want me to vote.
Thank you. The subject of the possibility of Medicaid expansion has come up. I'd like to know at this time what each of your positions is on whether you would support Medicaid expansion.
Let's start here with Mr. Smith.
Of the Affordable Care Act, within the ruling a couple of years ago now, the court specifically said that states did not have to expand Medicaid. That was part of the bill that they did overturn. I'm opposed to Medicaid expansion. It's only going to cost the state money out the years, and so I'm opposed to it.
I'm not going to comment on whether I'm for it or not, and I will not comment until I see the bill. That's the way I have done since I've been in the legislature. People want my opinion. Will you do this? Will you do that? But when a bill comes out of a committee and comes to the floor of either the Senate or the House, you want to know what's in the bill before you vote on it. Well, when it comes to Medicaid expansion, I want to listen to the debate. I want to listen to my constituents who have a feeling about it, and then I want to read what's in the bill, what I'm voting on. So with that, I'm not going to make a commitment right now on Medicaid expansion.
I think there are alternatives to Medicaid expansion we need to be looking at. You know, there's some that said we put off Medicaid expansion vote this year because it was the election year. We didn't want to talk about it. Not true. There are other options out there that other states are using the private sector to purchase health insurance for these people that would otherwise qualify for what's called Medicaid expansion. It's hard for me to vote for a program that's got problems. Okay? let's look at other alternatives. I agree with Dale. How can you say what you're going to do in any particular situation until you see the bill and see what other alternatives are looked at? Right now, I'll tell you, in my opinion, there are not the votes in either the House or the Senate to simply expand Medicaid the way some people are looking at it. But let's look at alternatives and see if there's a better way, if there's a more market-oriented way, in a way that fits Idaho's needs better than the way the federal government's doing it.
Well, I think Dale and Brand spoke very well about it. Yes, the decision is going to come up sooner or later. We have to investigate and look at what alternatives are, if there is any that is suitable for the state of Idaho. I didn't appreciate Ron Nate saying people that I've already given my vote for in consideration of Medicare expansion. I've never done that. I've never said that. But it's an issue. And as Dale says, let's look at the issues and the facts and make a decision, whether we want it or we don't want it. There is a lot of problems with our continued growth of expansion welfareism in this nation. It's costing us. You're putting more people on the dole, and a certain percent of them will never get off the dole. And do we want that? We're, as a Christian nation, I guess you can't say that's not politically correct anymore, we want to help our folks. But what price is it to expand Medicaid? We don't know. We have not investigated. And I certainly want to see what's up and available and make a private decision once I've investigated and know the facts. But to say that I'm for expansion is incorrect.
Do we have another question? Go ahead. Sorry, this is going to have to be the last one, and then we will have a 1-minute closing statement.
You mentioned that you wanted to obey the law, and you go along with things because the feds have said it's the law. But there's a law higher than that, which is the Constitution. And why would you follow a law just because the Supreme Court said so? They supported slavery at one time. And the feds are really overrunning the Constitution. And there comes a time for the state to resist, even if there are consequences.
Can I just follow up there? Who should decide then if it's constitutional?
It's pretty obvious reading the Constitution.
If it were obvious, we wouldn't have court decisions going on both sides of the issue.
That's true, but you look at the amendment, the 10th Amendment, everything not written there should be up to the states.
Absolutely right. And I'll try to answer your question for you. Thank you very much. This concept of nullification was talked about before the Constitution was written, while it was being written during the Constitutional Convention, and even after it was written. That nullification concept was talked about. But the point is, it never made it into the Constitution. The Constitution gives us our remedies right here. And first of all, it does say that the federal law is supreme to the state law if the two laws are in conflict. And then it goes on to say that, you're right, it's got the 10th Amendment. It says that if 10th Amendment says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited by it to the states are preserved to the states respectively or the people. Well, I agree with that. But there are powers that are specifically delegated, and again, in Article 3, Section 2, it talks about the Supreme Court, that they are the ones who get to decide whether the law is constitutional. It would be complete anarchy if we had anything else. If you got to decide whether it was, and I decided it wasn't, we argued about it, we had no provision in the Constitution to have an ultimate say, we would have anarchy in this country. We can't have some states deciding to keep the law and other states deciding not to. The Constitution provided for that. Now, if we don't like the way the courts are interpreting the Constitution, the Constitution provided for that too. And that was we, as states, as states, can call a constitutional convention, and we can change the Constitution so it's more clear to reflect what the states really want. The Constitution is an inspired document. It gave us answers and it gave us solutions. We need to follow those, though, not come up with our own and abandon the Constitution as a result of it. Those are my feelings about it.
Would any of the other candidates like to take that question? It's an issue we've talked about a couple times today, but if any of the other candidates would like to address that issue before closing statements, they have that opportunity. Senator Hansen.
Thank you. We all are incensed by the growth of the federal government and the regulations and seemingly no end to what they're doing. We have a two-party system. Well, I guess we have other smaller parties, but basically a two-party system. We need to put people in the federal government that will uphold the Constitution and not recklessly just spend and do whatever they will. I think the answer to that is we need more Republicans in the federal government. That's where our problem is, and we need a president. I voted for Mitt Romney. I thought he would be a superb president to stop this rampant growth and encouragement into our daily life the federal government has had. That's the real problem. We need to get more Republicans in Congress, back in Washington, D.C., and things will work themselves out. So, be a Republican, support your Republican people. We do that very well in Idaho, but we need more of that throughout the nation.
Mr. Smith.
I can't disagree with what has been said just a moment ago. I agree the Constitution is an inspired document. I agree that between the state constitution and the United States Constitution, the United States Constitution is supreme. I agree with that. I agree that we need to get more conservative people in Washington, D.C. Well, maybe not conservative, more libertarian-minded people. We need to get people there who are mindful of personal liberties. But we need those kind of people in Boise, too. The 10th Amendment is the amendment that grants the states the power to say, wait a minute, federal government, I don't think that's right for the state of Idaho. It's not capricious. You shouldn't do it just because you don't like the law, but on solid grounds of constitutionality, even when the Supreme Court calls it constitutional. Sometimes they get it wrong. Internment camps were right. They were legal. If Idaho had nullified and protected its borders, maybe we wouldn't have done that here.
Let's go ahead. Representative Raybould, if you want to take a shot at it, you're more than welcome to. Not under any obligation.
Okay, just a second. We raise our hand when we are sworn into our position at the state level to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Idaho. And that means to obey the law. And we have to, whether you like the law or you don't like the law, a federal law, we pledge to obey the law. Now, it doesn't say that we can't contest the law, but we can't ignore it. We have to do the best we can with what we have. And that's, I think, what our legislature has tried to do. We tried on this Affordable Health Care Act. We joined in a lawsuit. We tried to do it. And we were overturned by the Supreme Court. We did what we were supposed to do, but we were overturned. So we obey the law. Now, any one of you can disobey the law if you want to. If you think that you don't like the federal law, go ahead and disobey it. And wait till a federal agent comes and arrests you. Then see how you are. We are a nation of law and order. And that's what we have to keep doing.
Is my memory correct that on the opening statements we started on that side and went this way? Okay. Everybody remembers, did we start here or go that way? Okay. Well, we'll do the closing statements the opposite of how we did the opening statements. And I will go ahead and start with Representative Hansen and come down this way. 1 minute, please.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about what I've done. In the House, I supported our tax cut. We've eliminated the personal business property tax, personal business tax, to 95% of the businesses in the state of Idaho. We allowed them to have more money so they can expand and grow. We've reduced the tax rate to those businesses. So they, once again, they're not burdened out of existence by too much tax. We've tried to develop our economy by allowing other companies come in where we have a very low tax rate, low tax burden, and it's working. Chobani over in Twin Falls came in and they built the world's largest yogurt factory. They brought in hundreds of jobs. This is the type of things we must do and what we have to. Education. I'm very big in education. We need to provide a first-class education program for our children. The high-tech, the real solid growth companies don't go where education is very poorly supported. We had a 5.1 tax increase for K through 12, which is more than what the governor requested, is 2.9. We are very much pro-education, and I'm very proud that we're doing what we can to make our state better so we can have more growth and better paying jobs.
Well, first, I'd like to thank my wife who's here this afternoon, I guess I should say. And none of us could be successful in our positions or in our careers or anything else without the support of our spouses. And appreciate her help. And, you know, I've had the opportunity over the years in the legislature to visit with legislators in a lot of different states. And I want you to know there's no better place to serve them in Idaho. There's no better people to serve than you. It's been a privilege and I'm grateful for it. This primary is about much more than one issue or one candidate. You've heard it said, but this is a fight for the heart and soul of the Republican Party here. Del Raybould, Doug Hansen, and I have represented the conservative Republican principles that have made Idaho such a great place to live, and do business, and to raise our families. I hope that you'll continue to support us as we continue to serve you. Thank you very much.
It's been an honor for me to serve in the House of Representatives here in the state of Idaho. Idaho is a wonderful place, and the Upper Valley in Madison County, this area up here, is a choice, I think, above most other places in the United States to live. And I plan on serving the people of this area and doing the things that they need to be done, that can be done, with legislative action. I've been as conservative as I possibly could. I've said time and again that if you're playing baseball and you're playing in right field, you want to cover right field and make the catch there if you can. But I don't believe you want to stand outside of the foul line over in the bleachers waiting for a foul ball. I think you want to be in the game and be playing. And that's what I have tried to do, and that's what I intend to keep doing. Thank you.
First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. I'd like to thank the Chamber for putting on this forum. And just in thinking about things, you know, up here, there are 4 conservatives, no, 3, and a Liberty candidate. I'm the Liberty candidate. I've earned the endorsement of the Republican Liberty Caucus and my wife. Those 2 endorsements are important to me. I believe in personal liberty, and my governing philosophy is simple. If I, as an individual, have power to do it, then the government has power to do it. If I don't have the power to do it as an individual, say, make you healthy, then the government doesn't have that power or responsibility. Your health is your business and your responsibility. I don't see why we're taking on a yoke that is unnecessary. And because I stand for liberty, I'd appreciate your vote May 20th. Thank you.
Again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your willingness to give us your views, your ability to express yourselves clearly. We appreciate your time. We give the candidates one more round of applause.